Yeah. Welcome. Welcome you. Hey. I am your big brother. Where will you be for the revolution?
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Sideliners here at Wire TV. I am your host, Joe Partain, here with my colleagues, Matt Miles and Mr. Tyler Gooby.
Pleasure to be here, Joe.
How are we doing, everybody? It's been a long break.
It's
been a long break.
Long
yeah,
break.
It's been, unfortunately, but now we're finally back and we get to talk about some sports.
Heck yes. All right, so we are here to talk first and foremost about the Super Bowl. This one wasn't really that much of a memorable one. I feel like going back for the past couple of years, we've all had big memories of a big player, something that happened. And, there was definitely things that happened here, but it wasn't as memorable as the last few.
Joe, I think it's because there was two teams that you wouldn't expect in the Super Bowl. I think the way the Chiefs started the season, you didn't think they were going to maybe make that Super Bowl push. And the 49ers, I think, have always been a team under the radar. Even if they had the number one seed, they still were never given the credit I think they were due, I thought it was a fairly good game, though. I thought there was a good mix of offense and defense. But like you said, there was no big time, unless you're talking about the Hill play. That was kind of the end-all, be-all play of the game.
Yeah, I believe that ultimately changed the dynamic for the Chiefs team. It was a big play, and it gave them a bit of a morale boost. They saw that they could make a comeback, and with a leadership like Patty Mahomes have, it's inevitable that they always come back and do something big. That's another point I want to touch up on. Patty Mahomes is a generational quarterback. He is someone not only on the field, but off the field. Make sure that every guy is good, clear-minded. There's actually clips shown that I've seen on Twitter where Tyreek Hill's a bit down, a bit flustered and whatnot, and Patty Mahomes gives him that morale boost saying, come on, man, we got this, and so forth. So, Patty Mahomes, in my opinion, was the player that really brought the Chiefs to the top.
Patty Mahomes is a big leader, and, he definitely did get on his team whenever they were down. This is the first Super Bowl, or the first Super Bowl winners to ever come back in all three games of the playoffs from down, I think, 10 points or more. Mm-hmm. So it definitely speaks to what Patrick Mahomes was able to do with this team, how he doesn't feel the pressure of being down. He almost feeds off of it, where he makes a big comeback, and once he starts going, you can't stop him. And that's basically what happened to the 49ers. They got caught up on themselves and choked.
Well, I think the 49ers, for the first three quarters, made Mahomes look human.
Yeah.
Because Mahomes did not have a good game going into that fourth quarter. And then I almost feel like the 49ers let off the gas. And they felt too comfortable, and that allowed Mahomes and his squad to kind of step in and make plays that, in the beginning of the game, the 49ers wouldn't have allowed some of those passes to go through that were going through in the fourth quarter, which, of course, to Mahomes' credit, is he raises the game when it's needed to be raised the most. But, Mahomes to win the MVP, I don't think he should have been the MVP. I think their running back was the MVP of that game, or Andy Reid, if you could give a coach, MVP. But I really think their running back actually was the MVP, or even Hill. I think you could go either way.
I don't know about Hill doing enough, but Damian Williams, I believe, was the running back that he had the 2 touchdowns, and he blew that game open.
Over 100 yards rushing.
When Patrick Mahomes wasn't able to completely succeed the way we usually do, see him go, they were able to use the run game, and that's huge for him. It gives him space and time, and it throws off the defense.
So what do you guys think about Kyle Shanahan's meltdown? Do you think it was particularly his fault, or was this throughout the whole team that they just weren't ready to really finish this game out?
I think this was more a game of the Chiefs winning than the 49ers losing. I don't think that they really did much wrong. They had that big play at the end where Garoppolo just overthrew his receiver, and that would have totally changed the game. They also were getting a little bit cut up by the refs. The refs definitely were not on their side. They had that big play at the end of the first half. Where, I forget who it was coming down the right side. Their tight end who got called for pass interference on like a 50-yard catch that would have set up a field goal. And they called it for pass interference, and it definitely should not have been. I thought that was a bad call.
So after 20 years, we've seen that Andy Reid has finally won a Super Bowl. How much do you think that means to him?
That's got to mean a lot to him. He's a legendary Hall of Fame quarterback, and this seals the deal. Like, this is what he's been working towards for 20-plus years. This man is he's changed teams. Like, he was great with the Eagles. He's great here. He has never really been the problem where he was, and he finally shows that he deserves a championship. I thought it was good for him.
Pretty much. Like, I kind of feel you on that. You know, there was always that if. Like, well, if he wins a Super Bowl, then he'll be a Hall of Famer, you know, like. And pretty much he had options and he had chances, but he just didn't fall through with them. But this was the time where he finally got what he deserved after 20 long years. Matt, what do you feel about it?
I feel like, you know, a lot of players would probably say in the NFL that Andy Reid's one of the most respectable coaches in the league. He's stayed classy. He hasn't cheated. He hasn't done anything. He's not even a big public figure. He's very much to himself. But I think he deserves this moment and to be patient with an organization, to not give up, because they did have Alex Smith, to work Alex Smith with Mahomes and to incorporate them Mahomes in to take over the franchise, and to keep all those pieces after, you know, Hill getting in trouble, Kareem Hunt getting released, all these moving pieces that we sometimes don't think about. He was able to keep them in that ship together, and even when the season didn't start out the greatest, to get them all the way to this point, I think speaks volumes to Reid's coaching abilities.
I agree. Now, what do we think about Kyle Shanahan's coaching abilities?
I think they're proven. You know, we've seen him go to the Super Bowl twice in his career. He's still a young coach, but ultimately there's some things he still needs to work on. And with that, kind of like Andy Reid, it comes with time. I think eventually Kyle Shanahan will win a Super Bowl with whatever team he's coaching. But, you know, he is a very young coach, so that really comes with the experience. And we just hope, I'm not a 49ers fan, but I know 49ers fans hope that they don't have a meltdown like they did again, like with the Falcons and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, I think Kyle Shanahan's, much like Sean McVay, one of the, you know, two young coaches that have a very promising future, and they coincidentally are in the same conference, so they're going to have some nice, interesting battles in the future. But in terms of, I think it was a little bit of his coaching style that cost them, and I think it was also the way the players played at the end, because they shifted a lot of their schemes. They were doing very good running the ball throughout the game, and then they switched the passing more. And I think that kind of caught up to them a little bit, is they didn't stick to what was working for them. And I think Garoppolo and these guys are going to continue to grow. I don't think this is the last we've seen the 49ers. And he took a team that was 4-12 and has morphed them the last 2 years into the number one seed to make it to the Super Bowl. I think that's impressive in itself.
And all year, everybody on the 49ers at least was saying, you know, don't count us out. Keep sleeping on us. Sherman was loud about it too, and you know what?
Sherman.
He was right, because this team, talent-wise, you look at them on paper, they are not a Super Bowl contending team when you look at them on paper.
No.
And they came out and they played their hearts out all season, and they made it to the Super Bowl. So I think Kyle Shanahan deserves a lot of respect for that, for what he was able to do with this team and this group of guys that he has, because obviously football is a huge team game, and it's all about chemistry and stuff like that when it comes to having not as talented players. So I think it was huge for Kyle Shanahan and the entire 49ers team, and I think it's momentum going into next season. Even if they did lose in the Super Bowl, they still made it there. And I don't know about you guys, but I do not think they should have made it there.
I think it's pretty clear cut that at the end of the day, no matter what Shanahan, whatever the 49ers did, I think the Chiefs just have a better team.
Yes.
I think sometimes we look at all these different things. I think it's just simply the Chiefs have more talent. And sometimes, no matter how good of a game you play, the talent sometimes beats out, a good hot team. I think that's pretty safe to say in this situation.
Now, all in all, Super Bowl wasn't exactly the most classic. It will not go down in history as one of the best, but it definitely was entertaining and a great game. Now, when we get back from commercial, we're going to be talking about some MLB and one of the biggest scandals of all time. So stick with us.
Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. Go to discovertheforest.org.
All right, good stuff. And we'll be back after this quick commercial break.
All right, good stuff, guys. We got 30 seconds. We'll come back and we'll talk about basketball, right? Talk about basketball?
Yeah, sounds good. The Knicks have been horrible lately.
Yeah. All right.
Always coming for us.
All right. Let's dump out and we'll come back in 5, 4, 3, 2. Take 2. Cue talent.
Hello and welcome back to Sideliners on Wire TV. We're here now to talk about some MLB. So over this postseason, we've had a lot of news come out about one of the biggest scandals ever in major sports history that I can remember back to at least the steroid era. The Houston Astros were caught and fined and penalized for cheating, sign stealing, one of the biggest problems right now in the MLB post-steroid era. So how do you guys feel as fans of the game? How has this affected how you feel about even just watching baseball for the past 3 years and basically being lied to?
Well, Joe, to be quite honest, if I didn't like the MLB and I was just an outside person, I would think these people are absolute geniuses to figure this stuff out. Because, I mean, honestly, they were able to decode and use systems to figure these things out. I think that's kind of smart. But since I do like the MLB, I think it tarnishes the game a lot. I think steroids did, tarnish the game, but that was like a player. We're looking at a whole franchises, the Red Sox and the Astros, that the Astros have been proven that they have indeed committed this. And I think that they should have lost their World Series title. I think that should have been stripped from them. And I think if these players aren't penalized, the Astros, they got a $5 million fine. They got 2 draft picks taken away. And then their general manager and head coach got fired. That's not much of a penalty. Yeah, they still have the same players that are going to go out there and still play. They're still going to be a 90-plus win team. And so I don't think the MLB took enough measures to knock them out. And furthermore, if they're not going to penalize these players, I personally feel that Pete Rose should be reinstated to the Hall of Fame, because what these guys have done is far worse than Pete Rose. Pete Rose betted, but he betted on his own team to win. So in my sense, Pete Rose did lie, but these guys are a bunch of salty. These guys are salty upstairs or something, because the Astros need to be punished more.
Yeah, I definitely
really think they should be.
Ultimately, the way I look at it, just think about all the players who have versed and pitched against the Astros and lost money,
lost
jobs. That's very serious. And food was taking off people's plates. And personally, I agree with you, Matt. The repercussions were just not enough. They, like you said, they still have the same roster. They somewhat still have the same talent. Just ultimately, I'm very disappointed how the MLB reacted to this. I do believe that the Astros World Series should be taken away. This kind of reminds me of 2000 when the Mets lost to the Yankees in the World Series. That's something that my dad always speaks to me about, because like you guys said, it's a different era, and now is the steroid era, and we got cheated out of a World Series. So I very take it personally, and I'm just very disappointed how the MLB reacted to it.
I think there's 2 big points that need to be made. One, as much as, whatever kind of punishment MLB did throw at these players and the team, I don't think anybody would have said that's right, that's fair, that's enough. Everybody's going to want more. However, I do feel like the players themselves should have been at least suspended for a number of games.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, fined, what's that really going to do? Suspend them for like a quarter of the season at the very least. Something needs to be done so that these guys aren't on Twitter laughing at everybody that's pissed because they had a World Series taken away from them. Now, as far as taking away the World Series title, I don't think that that's realistic. However, there will forever be an asterisk next to the 2017 Astros and the 2018 Red Sox.
Red Sox, yeah.
It's the same thing. And Alex Cora being part of both of it only makes too much sense.
I really think that with that being said, that they really should then take it away from the Astros, because pretty much they're saying, okay, we're going to slap you on the hand, but if you cheat, you can still win a World Series, and we'll do a minor punishment.
Well,
and I don't think that's right, because then when they're looking at these rules that they set in place, they always refer back to a previous situation. So if another team cheats like this, they're going to refer back to the Astros punishment as the precedent. And so they're going to do the same thing over and over again.
Well, that's kind of what he was saying with the Yankees when they won the World Series in 2000s over the Mets, and they had all these players that were taking steroids. Yep. You 100% got cheated out of a World Series, and what happened?
And
they still won it, and
your dad 20 years later is still very mad about it.
Upset,
and he deserves to be.
We haven't been in a World Series. I mean, we haven't won a World Series in at least
a while.
40 years,
yep.
Something along that line. So, this is just something that really diminishes MLB's reputation. And like I said, how they reacted to it was very disappointing.
I'm very frustrated for guys like Kershaw that have gotten this reputation that he cannot perform in the postseason. And he got rocked in that series. And it was most likely because they were stealing signs off him. And
electronic buzzers.
We're talking more than just a season. We're talking about player legacies. Whether it was Sabathia potentially winning another World Series, or Joe Girardi even potentially keeping his job as the manager of the Yankees. Now, it wasn't guaranteed even if he won that they were going to keep him, but I personally like Girardi more than Boone. And so that cost Girardi his job. It, enabled a lot of different situations that have now transcribed from this. And I think that any player, even if they weren't involved, is now tarnished. Unless they come out and speak against this stuff. And then they look like bad teammates.
Right.
Well, I don't want my name to be attached to a cheating team. So I don't blame some of these guys for coming out and talking about it.
The weirdest part about all this is that somehow the Mets got dragged into it, because they just always do. Nothing goes well for them. And they lose their brand new head coach that everybody seemed to be very excited about, Carlos Beltran. He just might have been able to do some really great things for these players because they all respected him highly. And I think he had the right motivation and the right guys in the locker room to really build around him, and they could have been something for the next couple of years. And now you have to look at who was the new guy. Do you guys know who the new guy that the Mets hired was?
He was the AAA coach. I'm not sure of the name, but he was a very respected coach. As a Met fan, I don't value cheating, and I really hope the New York Mets organization never does something like that. And if we had to get rid of Carlos Beltran due to the accusations, then so be it. We have a great roster. We're getting a lot of pieces that are working well together. Pitching staff or hitting, things are falling into play, and we don't need that look of we have a cheating coach or we might be cheating.
Or potentially.
Yeah. I'd personally rather just have a coach who's genuine and is ready to win games naturally and how baseball should be played.
Yeah.
I don't think I could have said it better. That's how baseball should be played. Yeah. No one should be stealing signs, because then it just takes away the aspect of, I know what's coming, now I'm going to hit it. It's always been a guessing game, and it should stay that way.
The steroid thing it's a personal thing. These people wanted better stats. They wanted to be known as home run hitters or hold records. This kind of cheating is just, it's
very low.
Distasteful.
The worst.
It's low. It is really, it's scummy. if I could put it into a word. It's like you really couldn't win the right way, so you had to go and do it this way.
You know what the saddest part is? The Astros had enough talent; they didn't need to cheat to win.
No, they didn't.
You know,
No,
I
they
think that's the.
I mean, maybe not. You look at their numbers from home and away, and their away numbers were so much worse than their home numbers. Like, not even just bad for, like, being an away team, like who they are. They were bad for any team. So, well, a lot happened with the MLB and all of this. I really hope that this whole scandal thing stops now. But when we get back from commercial break, we're going to be talking about the NBA.
Where's Judge Judy at?
Yeah, I don't think his mic's working.
Should we go fix that?
Nah.
Let's leave it.
We're good.
This is Sideliners.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
The It's On Us pledge is a personal commitment to help keep men and women safe from sexual assault.
It is a promise to not be a bystander to the problem,
but to be a part of the solution.
As a SUNY Oneonta student athlete, I am proud to take the pledge. I pledge
to help keep men and women safe from sexual assault.
I promise
not to be a bystander to the problem,
but a part of the solution.
I pledge to recognize
that non-consensual sex is sexual assault.
To identify situations in which sexual assault may occur. To intervene
in situations where consent cannot or has not been given.
To create an environment
in which sexual assault is unacceptable and survivors are supported.
Join us and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
I pledge to help stop sexual assault.
Hello, and welcome back to Sideliners on Wire TV. We're going to finish off the show by talking about some NBA. So we just passed the trade deadline, and definitely a lot of moves were made. I think 2/3 of the teams in the league had made a trade, which is up from the past few years where it's been, you know what, actually no. The NBA is always just like a fantasy team type thing. Everybody's always getting thrown around. Superstars, nothing's loyal. And Drummond said it best. There's no loyalty. It's just a business.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it, Joe. I mean, especially with that Drummond's trade, it was shown that someone who gave his all to an organization still doesn't get the credit he deserves.
Just a lack of respect.
I think
it's disappointing.
I think with the Drummond situation, I can understand where the Pistons are coming from, though, because they're kind of the team that's not bad enough to get a top pick, but they're not good enough to make the playoffs or get ousted in the first round. And eventually, you do have to make a change. And Drummond is having a statistical year for 3 years in a row that is historical in terms of his rebounding numbers and his scoring, but he wasn't enough to get them wins. And eventually, he was going to ask for a big contract after this season. He's probably a max contract guy in some people's eyes. So, I mean, in some cases, the Pistons had to do what was best for their organization as well. Now, I like when players stay on one team, but sometimes I think their hands are tied as well. Just like if you looked at the Raptors when DeMar DeRozan wanted to stay on Toronto, but in order for them to advance forward, they got Kawhi, and it won them a title. And sometimes I think it's a business at the end of the day.
I think the biggest problem I have with that, though, is you at least have to tell these players and have a conversation and ask if there's somewhere they'd rather go or something that they could do for them. When a player has played for your team for 11 years and he's been an all-star for most of it, and he's been the biggest part of your team for this entire generation, you need to at least give him the respect of asking him or telling him before it happens what's going on.
And for him or any other player to be finding out on Twitter or social media, you know, that's definitely not as fair and something we expect. You know?
That's not business.
It's not business.
That's not business.
And it's very disappointing. Like I said, like, I didn't expect the NBA owners to be doing this, and I really hope this is something they figure out, because I'm sure a lot of players will start being selfish and start making their own calls of what they want the career to end up like.
Well, I mean, not everybody's LeBron, but LeBron did it right, making his contracts short and saying he had a whole plan in his head about where he wanted to go and how he wanted his career to play out, and I think you're pretty happy with it the way it's ending.
I would say I'm pretty happy at this point. You know, the Lakers didn't make any trade deadline moves.
I don't think they needed to.
And I don't think, in some cases, I feel like sometimes people say you have to make moves. I always think if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think the Lakers have enough talent that they'll be okay. They didn't, to give up so much for a 1-year rental or an additional piece.
It's not worth losing Kuzma.
Right.
Yeah. Agreed.
And so I think Kuzma's got good talent. I liked Ingram better than Kuzma. But he's good enough, and as he gets more comfortable in his role, I think he'll be okay. But it takes some time for these guys to mesh.
I see when it comes to any team LeBron James is on, you can't judge them until they're in the playoffs.
Yep.
There's issues that we see, but when it comes playoff time, LeBron James and his roster has proven time and time again that they're making it to the NBA Finals.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the Lakers, and kind of like you said, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
I think a lot of people are sleeping on my Lakers because, and not so much sleeping, but LeBron, if you remember, did not make the playoffs last year. The Lakers did not make the playoffs. LeBron was in 8 consecutive finals appearances before then. To have that extra summer to rest, I think is going to be huge going against a team like the Clippers with Kawhi, who's going to be
now Marcus Morris.
Right, and Paul George. So it's going to be tough to see where that goes.
You actually kind of segued into my next question. What did you guys think about that Marcus Morris trade for the Clippers and for the Knicks?
Well, I'll start with the Knicks. Ultimately, I believe that they just don't know how to do any correct decisions. They are just so all over the place. It's like, I'll trade a player, I'll keep a player, I'll trade a player, I'll keep a player. You just don't see any real direction of what the Knicks are trying to do. And it's very frustrating for New York Knicks fans because it's been like this for years now, and it's still not being fixed. I personally expect all these Knicks fans to transfer next year to the Brooklyn Nets because I don't know how much they could take with
Chris Thomas being the first one.
Funny. What do you think about this for the Clippers and the Knicks?
Huge pickup for the Knicks, or for the Clippers. The Knicks, they have no plan. They have no path. I really think they should just tank the rest of the season and keep rebuilding.
All right. They just went on a 4-game win streak. They won 4 out of their last 5 and a heartbreaking loss last night. It would have been the first time that they won 5 games since, I think, 2014, okay? First time they won 5 games in a row since 2014. Obviously, there's no real direction. They're winning games when they shouldn't be. They're trading away superstars. If they're winning now, what the heck is that?
So to go on to the last segment of the NBA, we are unfortunately caught off guard with the unfortunate loss of Kobe Bryant. For me, I always looked up to Kobe Bryant. I never thought that this would happen. He was an honorable player, an honorable father, a role model for pretty much the whole world. And I don't mean that lightly, like literally the whole world. People looked up to him in Italy because he was an AC Milan fan, all throughout the NBA. What I just want to take back from this is that we as friends and family, we really need to cherish each other and really, don't let the little things get in the way of just being friends and really loving each other because life is short and you never know when you're going to go.
Kobe Bryant's life was the definition of a legacy. He left behind so much between his kids, his wife, and the impact he made on the NBA and anybody who ever watched it even a little bit. He's more than a role model. He's a dad, and he paved the way for the work ethic that you need in your life to be as successful as you can be. He was one of the greatest people I think anybody will ever meet. All the stories that have come out, it breaks everybody's heart. He's one of the greatest to ever do it, but even more than that, he's one of the greatest people to ever do it. So, Matt, you got any words?
I'm going to try to hold it together. I think a lot of people know me as a big Lakers fan, but a big Kobe Bryant fan. His impact on somebody like me that I knew I wasn't going to be a D1 athlete for basketball or in the NBA, but what he was able to teach a lot of us is that if you had a focus and put your mind to anything you believed in, you could achieve that with the Mamba mentality, whether you were a 5'8" point guard like I was, or if you were doing broadcasting on TV. I think his reach, you didn't need to have met Kobe Bryant to know what Kobe Bryant was about. And I think the big thing that goes on here is he started to do the helicopter because he wanted to spend more time with his family, because he would get stuck in traffic and miss those plays. And so I think that in itself, I think a lot of us want to be parents and maybe even future fathers someday. And I think you're all, as a parent, you're ultimately, whatever the case is, trying to keep your kids safe. And if I was in that helicopter and my 13-year-old daughter was there, just looking at me, I don't know what I would have done. Just how it happened to him and the other families. I think you just feel like there's nothing like you could do. And so I think we just got to continue to remember what he was about, what those families, all those families were about. And that was being together. They were going to a basketball game and just being with family and friends, and you know that there is more to life than just the grudges and things that you brought up, Tyler. And I really think the NBA for the All-Star game should, as a tribute, change the NBA logo to Kobe Bryant. I think Jerry West thought of him as a son, and I think Jerry West would be willing to make that kind of tribute. And I think we have to, make Kobe Bryant, live on. And for him, he was nominated into the NBA Hall of Fame. And now his wife is at home with no husband, no 13-year-old daughter, and three other girls to take care of. And I can't imagine what that's like. And he was a big role model to me. And this is tough. This is kind of the first time I've really gotten to talk about it. A lot of people saw me last week talk about it on our meeting, but this is not easy, and I think this is the best ways to talk about these things and remember who he was as an athlete, as a father, and just continue to push forward as friends and continue his legacy in some way. So I appreciate giving me a little time to talk about that.
Absolutely, man. Well, that'll do it for another episode of Sideliners here on Wire TV. Long live Kobe, because he's going to be around for a while. And even though he's not really here, I'm sure none of us are going to forget him ever. So,
agreed.
Have a good night, everybody. Kobe.
Kobe.
Kobe.